Hi, so what you're about to watch is me drawing Gohan from the Dragon Ball franchise very poorly. This was initially a live stream that was on my Twitch channel that I decided to record and turn into a video of me showing my process because I found my process very interesting. So as you can see there, I did multiple bangs because it was going to be Goku, but I decided to switch to Gohan because he's a little easier to draw. So everything I draw starts out on paper, and I take the paper. Well, you're about to watch what happens. Let me not spoil it. So the top of his hair is quite difficult for me to get sometimes. As you'll see later, I don't really follow this sketch to a T. But yeah, so there's the weird Dragon Ball nose. Dragon Ball noses are quite weird sometimes, but yeah. And I redid the bang because it was too long, because I was still deciding on what form of Gohan I wanted to draw. But I went with Super Saiyan, as you can see the closed eyes, and I wanted to have him like kind of, angry. So yeah, so I take my initial sketch and I put it into my drawing program. I scan it with my scanner, and I put it into my drawing program, which is a very outdated version of Photoshop, but it's the only thing I know, so that's what I use. So I just go over my drawing, trace it, if you want to say that, but it's my own drawing, so, it's acceptable. So, as you can see there, I was going for the chin shape, and I normally start with the right side, but I felt like I did the left side better in the sketch, and what I normally do is I just duplicate it and erase the middle part of the chin like I'm doing there, because if I just duplicate them it makes a really pointy chin. So there you see me making a rounded out chin and getting a bit meticulous with my zooming and editing. So yeah, as I said, this was a live stream, so you're gonna see some people in chat chatting. I was just talking about how I'm not really big into ASMR of people eating. So we move on to the ears. So what I tried to do was my style, which is just basically an offshoot of a Dragon Ball style, but I do my ears differently. I will always do my ears like that. It's just something I picked up over the years. So here we move on to his hairline. I do a bunch of, especially when drawing Dragon Ball, I do a bunch of lines and then intersect them, erase the intersection points to make like the spikes. But for this drawing, a bit after this point, I wanted to try something different and make my lines more curved. You'll see once I get to the hair that I make the lines more curved. And we were, as you saw in chat, person asked about hair strands. So I was talking about something that I'm not a particular fan of when I draw. It's when hair overlaps something and you can see behind the hair. I don't know, it's just something something I'm not a big fan of. This is also not scripted, this audio commentary, but I figured I'd, go over it so you're not sitting here for 20 minutes watching me draw without any other thing happening. So yeah, I tried to go for less straight lines and more rounded, curved lines to try to make the hair look a bit fluffier. So as you can see right here on this side of the hair that I'm about to do, I barely stick with the sketch. Like initially I try to, but then I just freehand, making it more curved. And I still do the intersecting lines, but I'm making it more curved. I normally do just straight up straight lines. Here we move on to the bang. like I said, I wasn't sticking with my sketch and I wanted to make it more curved. So you can see I cannot start from the bottom going up. I have to start from the top. And I used the transform tool just to edit it a little bit, but I normally do not like using that. You see I switched to a thinner brush. I normally do very thick line art, as you can see on most of it, but about halfway through the drawing I decided to use a thinner brush and be more gentle. So I finished the head shape. I moved on to the eyes, going over my rough sketch. Chat gets a little wild sometimes. Yeah, that was an offer for how much I would, Anyway. So we move on to the eyebrow. Like I said, I was trying to do more curved lines. I think the shape turned out pretty well. I did notice a small error. I had to fix it there. A lot of what I do, I try to keep it mainly symmetrical, so it's going to be a lot of doing one side of something and then duplicating it. And there you see that little brow that a lot of Dragon Ball characters have when they're angry. I wasn't really set on an emotion for the drawing when I started it, but we ended up on angry. So you see me going over the nose right here. Yeah, Dragon Ball noses are weird. Like, I understand now what it's supposed to be. How, like, the inner part that will be shaded is supposed to be the under part of the nose, but man, that shape does not immediately scream nose to me when I see it. So yeah, here's the necklines, but you'll see later that I barely even use those. And then I moved on to the mouth. You can see I messed up there. But yeah, the mouth was like one of the most difficult. And you see there I catch a mistake, a line I didn't fully erase. I'm going back and trying to find which one it was, but I found it. But yeah, the mouth was the most difficult to figure out, because the piece looked good before the mouth. And then you see me doing face details here, but I end up scrapping them because I'm not a big fan of them, honestly. So normally I'd be using the circle tool for the pupils, but I wanted to try to do as much of my own stuff as I can without using minimal tools and editing. You'll see I'll do it for a background element, but yeah. So there, I moved the hair down. It's just a thing I have where I feel like Gohan's hair should be uniform in height, as opposed to like how Vegeta has that one part of his hair that, you know, sticks up above the rest. So then you see me here viewing and making layers visible and invisible to try to find out which ones were in the group to make the chin, because I felt like the face was too long. Okay, and now we move on to the coloring. So you can see that I have these character sheets. They are from the OVA Yo Son Goku and His Friends Return. It's not my favorite way to color Dragon Ball, but it's the way I color Dragon Ball, only because the character sheets for that OVA that are available online have extensive color guides. So that's what I use for my coloring. You can see here I'm deciding on how I want the background to be, so I'm using this square shape and making it sort of a diamond, and, you know, cutting out the necklines. So yeah, I'm going to start with the hair, and you'll see later that I maybe should have started with the lighter color instead of the base color, because I don't know, the coloration is not my favorite, but it's the one that's easiest for me to find, and there's, you know, in that OVA there were a lot of characters that appear. So, you know, character or color references for just about any Dragon Ball character you could think of, for real. So the coloring process is, there's not much to explain. I do try to stay inside the lines. So what I normally do is I'll go around the lines and you know, just make the shapes and then color in like the bigger parts. And you can see that it jumps there. Like, I'll go over something with the pen and it will not appear for a while until it just decides to. That's due to, like I said, the outdated version of Photoshop that I'm using. It can't handle my drawing, and it'll often not respond, and I have to sit and relax for like a minute or two to wait for the line I drew to appear. So that's why there's a lot of jump cuts in this video. So I normally wait to do the shading until I finish all the base colors, but for the hair I felt like I had to do some of it, especially the under part of the bangs. And then you can see I really struggle with this section of the hair. Initially I was gonna, we see right here, I make it so that the one spike is casting the shadow. I'm not all too familiar with like how light should work. I just kind of do whatever. You see I tried to make it a darker shadow, and I just ended up going with this. I don't know how realistic it is in terms of would the light actually cast a shadow like that, but I mean, yeah. You see in chat we're talking about twitter.com. If you come from my Twitter, you know that it goes down on my Twitter. So we move on to the skin. I will say for the Yosun Goku and his friends return, like the skin color is pretty good. I like how Gohan's quite pink. It's just an aesthetic choice that I prefer. Not a big fan of the shading though. In terms of the colors, they feel very muted. And you see here, I decided to flip the nose just so that later in the drawing I can have the nose be on the right side for shading purposes, as I decided quite early that where the light source would be due to the shading in the hair. Even though I'm not too read up on, you know, how the light should work. You know, I never really practice all that much in terms of drawing. I just do. And I never really read up on how light should be. So you see I switched to this very ugly color for the background, but that's so I can get the whites in the eyes done, and then I could notice any small mistakes that I made, because it was quite hard to see them, seeing as the color palette is very light. Oftentimes I'll not fully go over something and there will be a couple pixels where it's not quite done. So yeah, I move on to the full shading. You can see here I do the inner part of the ear, the right ear, well, my right, which you'll see later. I made quite a bit of a mistake. And this shading was all done without a reference. I normally heavily reference when I draw. You see that jump, that's because of my program. I normally reference a lot when I draw, but this one I decided to, you know, since I was showing my process, I decided I won't really go for a reference. I just kind of off the top of the dome, just went ahead and did it. So yeah, I erase that part and give him the little highlight kind of on the shaded side. If you look at most Dragon Ball art, you'll see that that's something that is done. I don't quite understand it, but I mean, it's what I did to replicate the Dragon Ball look. So here I move on to the neck. This part was very difficult for me, as you'll see. I don't really, understand how necks work. Yeah, you see, I just scrap it, start over. I went to draw lines to try to help me, and they did, but you'll see here that they're not quite right yet. So yeah, I try to play along with the lines that I drew, but I realized that yeah, they're not cutting it, so I'm cutting them out. We'll cutting the shading out and then fixing the angle on the on those little lines that I don't even know what they would be called. Like I'm not well versed on anatomy, but hey. You see here, I go for the neck shading. I try to keep my lines as clean as possible, but sometimes my hands are shaky. And yeah. So yeah, the piece is about finished. And you see, I went back to fill in the ear. That's because when I was doing the shading for the right side of the face, I accidentally went over that. You see, I'm doing the hair shading now. I didn't do much, especially since I'm not a big fan of doing highlights, unless it's for something later. But I don't really do highlights, and for the hair, I didn't do much of like the shapes inside the hair, so I didn't give myself much to work with when it came to shading the hair. You see there, I just go back on my decision to shade the left eyebrow and the bang. But yeah, the only time I'll really do highlights is pupils. I've started doing pupil highlights because I realized that they'll bring a drawing to life, honestly. So yeah, do that, and now it's time for the background. Now for the background, for most backgrounds, I really enjoy screen tone. So what I did here, I switched to a new canvas. I put my gradient, and then fiddling here with settings to a screen tone. But I had to switch to a new canvas so I could have access to the pixelate filter because of my color profile was too high bit. So you see, I made another rectangle so that I can get the shape, because I erased some of the rectangle that I use in the image to be able to hide the point behind Gohan's hair. So I went with purple because purple is like one of Gohan's colors that he wears a lot, and I went with orange because that's another color he wears. But you'll see here, I'm very indecisive on the background. I just recently started caring about backgrounds. But yeah, and all that's left to do is add the watermark, and here's the final piece. I'm quite happy with it, but I actually went back and edited the hair color. Like I said, I wasn't a big fan of it, so I made it lighter. But yeah, that's my process. I hope some of y'all found it interesting. I thank you for watching, and I hope to catch y'all, wherever that may be, Twitter, Twitch, wherever. See ya. Thank you.